Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, April 29th, 2019, and we'll start the way we do every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, we'll grant Westwood Media Center the right to record the meeting. Ask if anyone else wishes to record the meeting. Seeing none, okay. Under the chairman's update, we have 4 announcements. First, most important reminder is some of you may have already received town clerk's call this evening that tomorrow is election day. The polls will open from 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. And as you know, there are 4 polling locations in Westwood: the Westwood Senior Center, the Sheehan School, the Paul Hanlon School, and the Downey School. If you're unsure where you should vote, please contact the town clerk's office, and they will be happy to tell you which precinct to vote in. Next, under our annual town meeting. Annual town meeting will be next Monday, May 6th, in the auditorium at the high school. Check-in begins at 6:30, award presentations and resolutions to be at 7 o'clock, and the official business of town meeting will begin at 7:30 p.m. All information is available on the town's website, and by now everyone should have received the Finance and Warrant Commission report and its recommendations sent to your house, but it's also available online. On this Sunday, May 5th, the I Am Strong road race will be held. Registration begins at 9 a.m. and the race at 9:30. The 5K run is one of the foundation's major fundraising efforts. The running has been a fabulous outlet for Sophie, Isabel's sister, and the cross-country team in particular has been a major support as she deals with the loss of her sister. Once again, Sophie Medina is taking the lead planning this event, and with the help of Carol Morrison-Duch, a board member of the I Am Strong Foundation. So please try to join them on Sunday morning, starting at 9 o'clock. And finally, under announcements, we have the Eagle Scout Troop ceremony. The Eagle Scouts will be awarded on Saturday, May 25th, at 1 o'clock in the First Baptist Church. We have 3 young men from Westwood receiving the Eagle Scouts Award. We have John Durena. John not only worked in the town clerk's office for a little while, but for his Eagle project, he led some construction on 4 picnic tables at Buckmaster Pond and a wooden bench in front of the Westwood Town Hall. We also have Cameron Doherty, who is receiving his Eagle Award. Cameron's Eagle project included design and installation of signage for pathways in the Westwood Cemetery. And finally, not last but not least, our 3rd Eagle Scout will be Max. Anyone want to give me a hint on how to say it? Mascaratolo? All right, we'll try that one. Since he's not here, we'll have to go with the best we can. For his Eagle project, Max shared his fishing expertise with a group of scouts, friends, and family members as they fished at Buckmaster Pond to identify as many species as they could. So that ceremony will happen on Saturday, May 25th. That is Memorial Day weekend at 1 o'clock. We'll figure it out afterwards. Okay. All right. Do we have Tom? We have our town preambulator. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Perambulator. Thank you. So, Steve, did you want to come up and tell us what you were able to find? I bet it is. So you're out there in the woods all by yourself looking for these little tiny markers. Is that right?
Haven't gone in the woods yet.
Not yet, okay.
Just looking for the marks that are on the roads. Just by way of introduction, I've been surveying and mapping since I graduated from college in 1968. I retired in 2017, and later that year I spoke with Mike Gillette, offered my services to assist the board in perambulating the town, which if you read my report, that's actually by statute, that's something that the board or their appointees are supposed to do every 5 years.
So let me stop you there for just a second. So, because we all have a package and read it.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, tell them what that means. Tell us what you do.
Okay. Should I look this way?
No, just right where you are.
Just right where you are. That's fine.
Since sometime in the 17 or 1800s, the select boards of the various towns are supposed to perambulate, which is to say walk around their boundaries and inspect the corner markers. Westwood has 16 corner markers with different angle points for different towns. And back in the old days, they would actually chisel the date that they found the bounds. Then they went to painting them. But I was advised by the engineering department of the town of Needham that it's really better just to photograph the bounds rather than mark them. I did see some that had some marks on, I think one in Dover, but by and large, they don't have to be chiseled or marked anymore. And then there's a report that the board writes and says, these are the corner markers that we found, and that report then is signed, it's an official document signed by the board, filed with the town clerk, and also copies mailed to the town clerks of the abutting towns. That's sort of the general process, just so that the select board is aware of the limits of their town that they govern. And does that answer sort of the
Yes,
general
I
question?
think it does, yes, absolutely.
Right. So what I did is I started out to see what the town of Westwood might have in their records of previous perambulations. And I didn't find anything, not to say that they're not there, but they weren't immediately accessible. I did also talk with some of the neighboring towns, and Needham was really the only one that had information, and they had a whole process which they shared with me of how they perambulate the town boundaries. And so that's what I'm proceeding with. And the primary document is called the Massachusetts Harbor and Land Commissioners Atlas of Town Lines. And the one that includes Westwood was written in 1904, and it gives descriptions of the town lines, sort of a running description, gives descriptions and sketches of all the corner markers. And so I used that. Then I gathered supplemental information. The Norfolk County Engineering is really they've been most helpful. They have a lot of information there. And then I proceeded with two other citizens of the town of Westwood, Jack Wiggin, that probably needs no introduction, and then Glenn Harkness, who is a retired CEO of an environmental management firm. And we have recovered the markers along Norwood, Walpole, and Dover. And surprisingly enough, maybe to you, it's taken me a couple of years, and I still have to do Dedham and Canton. And Dedham is the tricky one because it is crisscrossed by Route 128, and I really have to rely on some state highway layout plans in order to find those markers.
Will there be one for Needham?
Oh yes, Needham. Needham is a very interesting property. One property in Westwood has a boundary marker with Dover, where Dover, Westwood, and Needham meet at the Charles River. And then a few hundred feet away is the marker with Westwood, Dedham, and Needham. So they have two town line markers on their property, and perhaps you've seen them already. And that will, and so as I said in my report, I hope to finish finding them so that I know where to escort the select people to take a drive-by all of these. I hope to finish my reconnaissance this fall, and maybe even do this drive-by, which is what Needham does. They select a date, and it'll take a few hours to drive all the way around, and then they invite the members of the select boards of the abutting towns to join them, They drive around, they look at that and look at the bounds and say, yes, these are the ones we've seen. And then I'd write a report with Christine's assistance to have a draft for the board to sign. Hopefully get that done by the end of the year.
Well, thank you for your hard work.
Yes.
Clearly, it's a passion, because I don't know too many people that want to be looking for those markers.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, they're right there.
Right.
And once you know that they're there,
And so on the map that shows the points, I'm just trying to understand, you have these red boxes
Yes.
that go around the whole town.
Oh.
What's the measurement of each box?
well, each
trying
one
to
of
stump
those
you, it's just
boxes is a sheet. So they're like 32 sheets. That's what those boxes are. So that the map that I gave to you
Yeah.
is an index, and the individual sheets,
Looks like it's about 4,000
a
feet.
scale of 1 inch equals 200 feet, and so it's 11. So it's a couple of thousand feet there, something like that.
Looks like it might be more.
Well,
By
looks
the
like about,
scale,
yeah, about
1 inch is
3,000.
4,000, so it looks like
Yeah.
somewhere in between.
Yeah, 1,000, yeah, a couple thousand feet long, something like that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very
Well,
much.
I guess we'll look to see you in the fall, and we'll be
Yes.
taking a bus tour.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Under our scheduled action now, we have a public hearing for Eversource.
Good evening.
Good evening. Would you identify yourself for the record, sir, please?
My name is Rick Schiavone. I'm here representing Eversource.
Shauna Kyle.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you.
All right, so you're here for a public hearing to have some electrical conduit for a new home at 510 Far Reach Road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I assume it's a brand-new house, and,
Under construction as we speak.
okay. Any questions?
Well, why don't we ask them to tell us what?
Sure, why don't you tell us
Yeah,
about it?
Essentially, that area already has an underground electric around there. We're just tapping off the existing electric across the street. We'll be trenching across the street, and there'll be a pad mount transformer on private property to serve the house.
Okay. I assume, Todd, that's been,
Yeah, I haven't, this is the first I've heard of it, but obviously when you apply for the permits, you'll have to do a street opening permit, trench permit, then we'll put conditions upon the permit.
Exactly, yes. Everything will go through the DPW at that point, yeah.
okay.
We good?
Okay, that's what,
Move that
60
the-
feet?
Public?
Yes. Because it is a public hearing, is there anyone here who wishes to offer any comments, concerns, issues?
Hearing none.
Seeing none.
I move that the board approve and sign the grant of location petition submitted by NStar Energy, doing business as Eversource Energy, location to install approximately 60 feet of conduit and at Splice Box 1266, which is necessary to provide electric service to a new home at 510 Far Reach Road.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Next, we have a request for common victual license, change in hours for Camellas. Nora, is that you? Is that you, Nora? I don't want to force you to come up, but, okay. So Camellas wants to change their hours to start serving breakfast, is
That's
that
right.
From
They-
6 to 11?
Yes, so
Yep.
they'd like to open at 6. Right now, they currently open at 10 a.m. I think they mostly serve from 11 a.m. on,
Right.
but they open the doors at 10 a.m. They'd like to open at 6 a.m.
And so it's the first I've heard of it. I didn't know they do breakfast. Is this
They do
the first
the
location?
Probably not,
Right.
normally, but
There needs to be a lot of traffic study first. The Starbucks kills the flow on 109, and to now think that people are going to be coming from the other side to try to get into that lane of traffic, we've created complete gridlock. So, I mean, has there been any study of the traffic impact?
There's been no study.
Can we force them onto Hartford Street at that hour in the morning?
I need a traffic engineer to tell us the options. I mean, I can't imagine that we would allow this.
Separate question. What is Starbucks, when does Starbucks open?
5 a.m.
And this isn't required to be a public hearing?
No.
This is not. So Karen Flynn, our licensing agent, checked with the ABCC, and they said that this is
Not theirs.
Not theirs.
not theirs at
their
all.
jurisdiction, right.
It's for food only, not for alcohol service at their
So the
morning
alcohol
hours.
service will move from 10 to, that they technically don't use 10 o'clock to serve, but it'll move to 11.
It stays at 10. Well,
Oh, it
it's-
stays at 10?
So the license they're acting under currently says that their hours of service of alcohol are 10 a.m. to 10:30, Monday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. to 11 on Friday and Saturday. So that remains unchanged. We'd ask you to sign another license agreement if you're approving these hours that would have a note on it that says they can be open for food service from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., but not for alcohol.
I think Mr. Hickey raises a really important point, because if they come out of either the normal, the either two that they can go in and out of and try to get on 109 East, it's going to have significant consequences at a time when it really backs up all the way down High Street, past Dunkin' Donuts and further on
So
many parts of the day.
the only problem I see with this is how can you do a traffic study if it's on something that's not open yet?
So-
And
Oh,
if
that's
this
like
is the
anything.
first one, but I mean,
That's
this,
like any plan,
Yeah,
though.
when the light turns green at Hartford now, half of the light cycle is lost to clearing out people from the Starbucks parking lot. And so now you're gonna have a driveway across the street that's also gonna be emptying out. I mean, a traffic study would involve, are they looking to be like Dunkin' Donuts, quick in and out? Are they looking to have a sit-down
They're
meal?
looking
How
to
many
have
tables are gonna
served
be open?
breakfast to go and
Yeah, I bet to
breakfast
go.
What's the
for
volume of
tables.
traffic in and out that they expect? I mean, there's a host of things you can study and, options. Is their parking lot become a right only? And people have to go west? I don't know. But we may as well shut down 109 if we're gonna now allow this.
So I'll just make a point that common victualers licenses, not that it's not a good idea, but common victualers licenses have not traditionally required
No.
any type of study or traffic or anything like that. I'm not diminishing that might be advisable in this instance, but it's not been the general practice. It's just, are they capable of opening for business? Are they following all the health codes? Are they? It's more about sanitary conditions and the ability to perform the breakfast service or the service of whatever meals that they're talking about. So this is a slightly different standard. We don't have a standard for
Well-
any other common victular license
But it's
that we
not,
issue.
it's not inappropriate to ask if there's a detrimental impact to the community.
No, I didn't say it was.
Right.
I'm just saying that
It just has not been
it's
part of the
it's never
procedure,
been
which
our
is why
procedure
there was
before.
no traffic study
Yeah.
performed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they have to do a traffic study, but I'm saying I don't know how we approve this and think we're enhancing the town.
Maybe the,
come up with a traffic plan,
I-
at least
yeah,
to
it's
send
a
people out-
traffic plan
send people
versus
back
a-
out onto Hartford Street instead of being able to pull out on 109 between the hours of,
but who's going to control that?
well,
Right. I think that would be difficult to enforce. I think you'd either have to show that cars coming out onto High Street can make the maneuvers into traffic, or you can't. I don't think you could force traffic to go. You could put up a sign saying between these hours, all traffic has to go onto Hartford Street, but I don't think you'd have any enforcement to make sure that cars were actually doing that.
put up the do not enter signs between 6 and 10 a.m. or something, 6 and 9.
There are other businesses there, though, that,
Right, but not to be able to pull out onto 109 as opposed to go around the back way into Hartford, and empty onto Hartford.
but I think if you were to do that now, you'd be affecting the other businesses that are in the building already.
I think it requires more thought. I'm not inclined to support it either.
Right?
Well,
We'll let
let
them know.
them know that they should do a traffic analysis based on their expected
Yeah.
clients.
I mean,
I mean, maybe get an idea
Comes up.
on how successful it is if it's done at any other location, and how many people stop in,
Mhm.
you know.
We're not aware of any other location that they've tried this.
I'm not, no, I'm not aware of any other.
It's
place.
interesting that they would even want to, being on that side of the road. That's from a business concept, they're on the wrong side of the road for what they're looking to do. They're on the inbound, but they want to get outbound traffic in the morning to come through. It's really not the right dynamic.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
it's similar to the Dunkin' Donut down a little bit further. on the exit. The one down by the plaza, just before the cemetery.
Yeah, I think they're looking at the toast office, which is done well in the morning, but in order to get out of that parking lot, there's a light cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lifetime.
Yeah, here are concerns.
Yep, I will make sure Karen brings them back.
Stay right there, because you have Lifetime Bistro.
Yes, so Lifetime Bistro is here to request its annual CV license. So they're a seasonal business. This is for the pool bistro. You renewed the license for the indoor food facility in December with all the other CV licenses, but the bistro is now preparing to open for Memorial Day weekend. And they would like their license. They still do need to have their annual inspections by the building department. So we'd ask that you make your vote subject to the usual inspections.
Okay. Questions?
No.
No?
I move that the board approve renewing the seasonal CV license for Lifetime Fitness Poolside Bistro for 2019, contingent upon satisfactory inspections of the building department, the fire department, and the health department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
Algonquin Gas Transmission, the Corrosion Control and Integrity Management Program License. So who is, anybody? Oh,
Hello, we had John Bonzel was supposed to be here. He might be running a little bit late. I was
okay.
wondering if we could,
Did you want us to bump it?
if we could, please.
Yep, we're happy to. Because Todd will fill in the time that it'll take for you. We did, yes.
That's what we were just talking about. We're not inclined to support it yet. We're very concerned with the traffic impact of,
Come on up.
Come on up.
are you with
Or want to come
Camillus?
back up?
Yes, I am.
Good evening.
Good
Would you identify yourself for the record,
Yeah,
please?
my name's JP Camilla. Been up here several times for you guys.
Yes.
Good evening.
Morning, or good evening.
So we just had a discussion about problem of emptying out traffic at breakfast onto 109 based on that light cycle, right, where, you know, the traffic lights empty out.
Most of our customers that will be visiting us at the morning time will actually be heading west. They'll be local people, landscapers, contractors, townspeople, if you will, police officers, fire. So we're actually not trying to hit the people that are heading eastbound into Boston. A lot of the students I've noticed are out before school. There's middle school there, there's a high school there. Certainly in the summertime they have jobs. So they too will be visiting Camillus in the morning time for breakfast. So actually customers heading east probably aren't stopping at Camillus for breakfast, as I don't know if they would stop at any of the businesses on the westbound side, but certainly they have options, I think, heading into the city. But so the light cycle, well, I think I understand what you're saying, is not going to apply to most of our customers. Again, it's kind of a pain to, you know, turn around and then head back into Boston. So most of our customers, students, people that work in the area, you know, will be heading into Dover, Medfield, Westwood to do their job for the day. As you guys know, there's been a market there that had morning hours there for several years before we got there. And just listening to the customers that come into Camillus now, it's really just based off of their feedback. They'd love to have an area, a spot to come. I don't know if you were able to check out the menu, but certainly has a major offering that is not in the marketplace. So yes, we're gonna have coffee, you know, so we'll be trying to go after Starbucks. Yeah, you know, yes, there'll be an egg sandwich. So I'm sure there's places, you know, down the street and whatnot that will have them. But, you know, the breakfast pizza that we're gonna offer, which is not, you know, insanely unique, is certainly not in the area. So, you know, we're again just kind of opening up menu options for the people that are local.
Might help. Do you have any other businesses that have
Breakfast?
breakfast now? To explain some
No.
experience?
Westwood is such a great, unique store for us that we are going to be doing it. I have applications in 2 other towns to be doing it, so we will be running it simultaneously. But this is the first meeting we were able to get on to.
Yeah, I just think there needs to be a much greater study on the traffic impact. And what I had said earlier was the flow on 109 is terrible because the Starbucks parking lot is emptying out. The concern is the same would happen with people trying to go eastbound from your store. And I'm not sure where you're getting the sense that only westbound traffic would stop there if you're offering unique.
I mean, we're offering it to everyone, but
Right.
certainly the
So where do you get the
customer.
confidence level of westbound traffic only?
Do you drive into the city?
Well, westbound is heading the other way. You said you expect you'll only get westbound.
Drive into the city?
You're driving to the
Go
city,
to
you
your
go
job,
eastbound.
do you go in
He does,
eastbound?
yes.
I do.
So do you ever turn around, and head westbound to get a coffee or get an egg sandwich or whatever it is you eat in the morning?
I don't, but
No,
people wouldn't-
you kind of go along your way, and if you're heading east, you're going to go east, and you'll keep going east. To say that, all the Boston workers are going to be all of a sudden veering off and heading west, and then
Nobody's saying they all will. We're concerned that any will. I mean, it's not, your idea is a great idea. We just have
Yeah.
a real traffic issue on a lot of our streets in town, and the concern is that we would only be amplifying that. So this is our first time seeing it, and we're just, I think as a board, not comfortable with the idea that whomever is heading eastbound,
so this
your
was the
your
same-
success might be a source of a great problem for us. It's
and
an odd
again,
thing to
this
say, but-
application was in this plaza beforehand with that exact hours, and it was there for many, many years. I want to say into the tens
No,
of
I know the
20s.
store, that we all know the store that was there
Right, so
before.
to say that the traffic all of a sudden is going to be so fierce by Camellas, you guys must be already somewhat used to it because that business was there with this exact almost menu items. So what I'm asking is really not,
I mean,
know,
the
not that
the
unique.
deli. I
The deli
think,
was there, yeah.
Died a slow death, though. It wasn't generating business in the morning.
I mean,
That's-
I'm here to revitalize that and offer it to.
No, and we wish you well,
people.
but revitalization means more traffic on 109. That's the conflict here.
So I think.
I don't think it's new traffic since, again, the application was in this, almost this exact location.
Yeah.
So if anything, it would just be this, similar, the same of what's there.
JP, I think what was said, and I want to make sure it's clear, it's not that there was a decision made tonight. What the indication for the board was to communicate to you that a traffic study needed to be done and an analysis need to be done on how the flow of traffic would occur there, and then have you come back before the board with the analysis and a determination as to whether or not there are some issues that would result from the opening of the store, and whether or not there are some mitigating measures that could be taken to address the issues that might be created. So I think this is just, there's not enough information for them to make a decision, so they're looking to you to give them some more information and come back at another meeting.
It may be, JP, that it takes some work with the landlord to have, no left turns, so that they can't come into you and then go out and take a left back on 109 and continue east. And maybe it's only between the hours of 6 and 10, but I don't know how that impacts the other tenants of that building, if at all. Does that make sense? Our concern is that they'll come into Camellas, come back out, and then wait to try to take that left back onto 109. And that light is so terrible that when you add the traffic from Starbucks and now you add it on the other side of the street, it's going to be a nightmare. So our question is, maybe you can talk to the landlord and have, no left turn onto 109 and send them out
Is that a
Hartford
landlord
Street.
decision?
It could, I would say it would probably be a landlord decision.
I think it would have to be because you have the
Other businesses,
orthodontist in
right.
there. You have a
But they may not be
barber
open 6 to 10, you know
shop.
what I
We have a
mean?
barber shop that I think is open
Open at
pretty
8.
early.
Yeah. But even that, that would just help the traffic on 109 if we sent them down Hartford. Would keep the light flowing better.
I will give you guys the same speech that I've given you before. We are a family-run business. We need every tool that we have in our toolbox. this type of business has been at this location. You guys have dealt with this traffic before. This is not adding any type, of new traffic that hasn't been on island. To ask us to spend money to do a traffic study and to delay us, more from potential revenue that the town's gonna feel through tax, that, we're gonna feel obviously by working more hours, it seems a little unreasonable, and, I just,
I think you might want to stop there and talk to Nora and Mike after and see what else could be done. That would be my feeling.
so.
So we'll continue it to another time, all right?
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can do Algonquin now. Are you
Yes,
here?
I think so. We can do Algonquin now?
Are you ready?
John, that's John.
Okay.
Talk about a family-owned business. The Camellas started in my town, and I knew his dad and mom. JP coached for me in CYO basketball in my town.
What town is that?
Wellesley. And
Have them stop the breakfast business there so we can get some data. There you go. That'd be a big help.
I'd be glad to.
Yeah. Thank you.
But one of my favorite stories, if you don't mind, as we set up here, it has nothing to do with Algonquin gas. Some years ago, I was in
Thank you.
JP's location in Wellesley, going in to get our usual Friday night pizza. And JP was there with his youngest daughter, Abby, who is now quite a track star, as you probably know. And JP says to his daughter, he says, I've known, Mr. Bonsall knew me when I was your size. And Abby looks at his dad,
Oh, they're all-
looks at his dad, looks at me and says,
Yeah.
Dad, stand up and show him how big you got. So she was about 6 years old.
They're all the same. Yeah.
Oh. These are all the same.
Yeah, we had different sets.
You have,
Oh,
one-
I'm
Take one and
sorry.
pass.
I thought they were already segregated. I apologize for that.
We're figuring it out.
There's 3 pages?
Looks like,
Yeah, 3. Oh, same thing.
No, there's a different one at the back. Right here.
Yeah, we have it.
This one and this one.
Yeah, there's 3 pages altogether. There's a page.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Nancy, which one do you need?
the,
I need those, John,
yeah,
please.
the aerial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, let's put them all back
I'll give
together.
you my copy after.
Christine, did you want one?
Oh, just
You
give
sure?
mine up. You can give it back to them.
Okay.
Okay.
1. 2. Do I get that green folder? Please. Green
one?
Green folder.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Feel like I'm doing exhibits for trial, but okay. Okay.
I apologize for that.
You're just testing us, I know.
Yeah, I want to see, you can figure out the different ones. For the record, my name is John Bonsall. I'm an attorney with Keegan Whirlin LLP, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Algonquin Gas Transmission. We have several members of the Algonquin team here. Doug Parcher, who's the project manager for the installation of this cathodic protection system, is here. Doug is over there. And we also have Kathy Arruda, who is responsible for outreach in terms of landowners, et cetera. And Gene from VHB is here as well, and Gene is responsible for putting together the notice of intent application that we expect to file with the Conservation Commission shortly. We've met with Mr. Gillette and some of the other staff members from the town over the last couple of months to first explore a couple of different possible locations that we were considering. We got some very good feedback from that, and that really directed us over to the Westwood Cemetery area for the installation of the cathodic protection bed itself. Essentially, Algonquin Gas Transmission is an interstate gas pipeline company. It was founded in the late 40s, began providing service in 1953. It operates over 1,100 miles of gas pipeline facilities in interstate commerce. And it's regulated at the federal level in terms of safety by the U.S. Department of Transportation. U.S. DOT has very vigorous regulations that require the interstate gas industry to make sure that they keep their pipeline systems operating in a safe manner. There's a number of components to that effort, but we're here tonight to talk about a cathodic protection system. Essentially, what a CP system is a system that is engineered to provide or induce a low voltage current to the pipeline, and in turn, as opposed to the pipeline itself being affected by corrosion, there are anodes placed in an anode bed, which is what we're proposing to install, that I always use the word sacrifice themselves so that the pipeline stays in pristine condition. Doing some testing, it was determined that on the existing system that runs through Westwood, that in fact the cathodic protection was required in order to keep the pipeline operating in a safe manner. The cathodic protection bed does not, in this system, does not increase the capacity of the pipeline. It doesn't change anything about the pipeline other than it's a maintenance initiative to make sure that the pipeline continues to operate in a safe manner and mode. The location that we took a look at, and I'm going to give you the 10,000-foot overview, and then the rest of the Algonquin team can give you some of the additional detail. As originally we were looking to put the anode bed into Cemetery Pond, but as we looked at some of the features of that, the salinity level was not conducive to having the anode bed actually located there. So what we're now proposing to do is to locate the anodes just off of the access road. Obviously, this is High Street. This is the entranceway. This is where the
Parade will take place on Memorial Day.
yeah, exactly. And now we're not going to have to come across the access road. All the features will be on that side. We'll run the power off of a pole that's presently in the parking lot at the St. Margaret Mary Church, and run the electric lines underground. This is the existing Algonquin line, and that's an existing easement. And then we'd run the cables from that point over here to connect into the anodes themselves. The type of cable we're talking about is probably about that wide. It's a very small diameter cable, and it just attaches to the pipeline, and that's essentially the way the system works. We will start at a pole that's existing right now in the church parking lot. There will be a rectifier board that will be above ground on the existing easement back in this location, and then the cable itself will be installed from that point over to the anode beds and connect all of the anodes. That's the treetop aspect of the project. What we've been talking with the town is to get the requisite authority to have a license so that we could in fact install the necessary facilities in order to put this facility into place.
Okay, questions?
So the red, the thicker red is not over any existing easement.
Correct.
And so is that all town property, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Basically, from the existing easement over to here is town property. This is an existing easement, which is part of the church property, the
Right.
Archdiocese of Boston, and then the church property coming back up.
and so where the red is, if there's a grant of easement, you'll dig down and this is buried, or this is?
Yeah,
Doug, no, come on. Doug, come on up.
Just be near one of those little green lights.
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure out, what does this physically look like at the end?
At the end, there'll be very little above ground. What we're doing is we're putting a cable underground to get us to the ground bed here.
Can
Once
you
we're
give him the
underground-
microphone, just so it
Yeah.
can pick
Just
up
for
on the
television,
recording?
that's right.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
So it's pretty much just, we'll have, on our right-of-way here, we'll have a panel, which is basically a rectifier box, which is a small, it's not too small, but it's about this big on a backboard, sit on our easement back here. From here, the rest of it will be just trenched. We'll use a mini excavator. It'll be 3 feet deep, maybe 18 inches wide, a small trench. We'll weasel it through some of these trees here. I've walked it down several times. There's very few trees that will be in our way. We'll come back to this point over to where the access road is. to the cemetery. At that point, there will just be a simple junction box on a little 6x6. And then we'll trench back along where these green dots are. Where these green dots are, what we're doing is we're using it's kind of like an auger drill, but it's bigger. It's a core drill. So it's going 25 feet deep. It's a 1 foot hole. We drop the iron bars. The anodes are basically just iron rods. We drop them down in a hole, and pretty much that's it. And just
And why can't it be run along the existing easement? What is it? Why is it that you have to get to that other point?
so you need a distance from the actual pipeline
Got it. Okay.
to where the current can actually
Got
can
it.
have more influence over the area. And that's one of the big problems about finding an adequate spot is finding a good location that you can get a good throw on the pipeline.
And so, if this easement is granted, is there more in Westwood that you'll need, or is this it?
This is the extent of it. This will contain all of the facilities.
And you don't need any more anodes in the rest of the easement through Westwood?
No.
You've already
It's
tested?
interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say that. It's a maintenance issue. So as the pipeline gets older, it requires more current on it to keep it to the levels where it needs to be.
But does adding the anodes here put any more pressure downstream?
No.
Does
No,
nothing?
no, it's all beneficial.
Okay.
It's all beneficial for the pipeline.
But you don't see a further request imminently?
No.
And I think that's what Doug was trying to say. I was saying, no, this is the extent of the facilities. Doug is saying, someday, 10
Never
years
wanna say
down,
never.
3 years, or yeah, exactly.
I get it.
And that was the difference.
It's it's a science. There's a science to it. So we're expecting to get a good throw from this. So what comes out, it's not exact. So what comes out of it, we can only hope for the best.
It crosses High Street and goes past the middle school. That's really what I was.
Yes,
Concerned
yes.
about,
We're not near the schools.
Okay.
Yep.
That's,
So we're only being asked to respond to the request for the town land.
right.
But you've gone to the Archdiocese,
Yes.
I'm expecting?
Yes, we've met with the pastor at St. Margaret Mary, and we've also made contact with the Archdiocese office in Braintree. And a gentleman from there came out and met with Doug and I. We walked the ground, so he had a sense of what was there. As Mike knows, we just literally a week ago today finally got the final plats in, and the Archdiocese was waiting for that the same way the town was. And I've not had a chance to send that off to them because we also have to draft an agreement with them as well, and I'm in the process of doing that.
Out of curiosity, is this disturbing their parking lot? Is it more,
No, there's a
Yeah, you
there's a
can't tell.
tree, there's a path.
We're not disturbing the parking lot. In the back corner of this parking lot is actually there's a path, and I don't know how historical it is, but it actually brings you out onto our right-of-way. It looks like it's always been there.
Yeah.
but it looks like in the front, in the entranceway, at least the way the line goes, it's going across.
This is an
the newly-
electrical, this would be an electrical easement through the church. That's
So
what we're
not
asking.
the same,
The above ground?
not the same as the,
No.
the digging and the pipe?
No.
Okay,
Everything will be buried there as well, other than the connection on the pole where we take service.
okay.
You can see at this point where the line turns fatter here.
Yep.
So up with the thin line to there is where there's an existing pole feeding the church.
Okay,
Okay.
From that pole there along this edge, basically skirting the edge of their parking lot, we're gonna go, it's gonna be trenched there as well, underground service over here to where our rectifier will be on our easement back there.
And-
That's what
There's
we're
about a
asking.
2-foot path
Okay.
along the side of the church.
okay. You mentioned going through trees. Will it involve destroying any trees when you dig?
There are a few we'll have to take in the corner.
And what,
Gene, you might wanna talk maybe about that?
what is involved in the restoration after those trees are removed?
Well,
Sorry,
the
go-
plan
going
is
with it.
to, there are several trees coming down. There's some in this corner here, is it?
Yes.
And then 2 or 3 more along the way, and I think 1 over here. The plan wasn't to restore the trees or replace the trees unless you required it. Restoration of the trench line would be to backfill it, regrade it, smooth it out so it looks the same as it does now, and then reseed it. There is a lot of brush and in fact, a lot of invasive weeds and
Shocking.
viney type things back there. So in some respects, going through there is going to have to take a lot of that down, which probably isn't a bad thing. A lot of bittersweet and so forth that's like hanging off the trees. Some of the trees, one of the trees in there, I think that we list as a 20-inch tree. I think it's already dead. There's a big, large pine snag there that's like right on the alignment. So I think that's what we've designated to come down, but it's already a dead tree. So the plan wasn't to replace trees. It's kind of a wooded area now. If you wanted.
I'm going to turn to our DPW director and ask if there's any concern with any trees that, so far it sounds good, like they might be doing a bit of a favor, but
Yeah,
are there
that
any trees that are
specific
being
area,
lost?
As they had mentioned, that a conservation agent in Westwood has been pretty aggressive with just the growth that you had mentioned. The bittersweet has always been an issue.
Yep.
You know, my concern with the project initially was how is this gonna impact our future expansion? We set stage.
Microphone over to him, please, while he's talking. Thank you. No, it's so hard for us to remember to do that.
We set the stage about, I believe it was 5 or 6 years ago when we went to town meeting and received funding to do the most recent expansion project that we completed. So when we initially heard of this, I know Brendan Ryan, our assistant director, who runs the cemetery department, has been in attendance. So we just wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to impact the potential layouts that we'll have to work with over the next several years. And it doesn't. Everything else that we're going to be expanding upon is off to the left side. I know some of his requirements were with respect to the trenching. Obviously, everything is adequately marked off, caution tape. I believe the backfill, those are all things that we'll lay out within the permit. And obviously, the wire will be in conduit, so it's not just going to be a loose wire that's laying in the ground, I believe, right?
Yes, it'll be in a flexible interduct conduit.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I mean,
You don't have any concerns about any particular,
no.
the small number of trees
My concern
impacted?
My concern is impacts to a cemetery. You know, we have services obviously that are going on. I mean, I think when you get into the construction timeline, the construction scheduling, that's something that's going to be, it's going to have to be communicated on a daily basis.
Yep.
With our department and work in conjunction with us. Obviously, if there's a service, we don't want to see mini excavator. We don't want to hear noise. We don't want to hear chainsaws or anything of that nature. And quite frankly, if you guys are willing to contribute anything to our cemetery, future design funding or expansion money, we'd be more than open to that as well.
Sure.
How long does a project like this take, if not interrupted?
Pretty quick. It would be a week. We'd be
Okay,
in and out
so-
of there.
So if you were to receive a call that the DPW would know a certain hour on a day that there might be a burial taking place,
Yeah,
what
we
he's
can
saying is we
work
need
with
you
you.
to
I mean, we're not.
respond.
So we're here to work with the town.
Yeah,
So if we need to, even if it was short notice, if there was gonna be a burial or
Typically are.
something going on, we would certainly, vamoose, and that's fine with us.
We've had a similar discussion with the church, obviously, and
Right.
we've made a commitment that, once they let us know, we'll shut down. I mean, that's easy. We appreciate the fact that
yeah.
when
this
you're going
isn't-
through that kind of a
Yeah.
service, you don't want construction
Yeah.
equipment all over the
Yeah.
place. So
Yeah.
we'll coordinate however we need to make that happen.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it, but I think if we're going to grant an easement, I need some sort of descriptor of the easement, and I don't have that.
Well, we've actually asked for a license
License agreement, yeah.
Okay.
that would be easier.
And we don't need any sort of physical description?
I put a draft license together that
Right.
Do we have it?
essentially
Yeah, it's right after it.
a plant as an exhibit
page.
so that it's.
There you go.
Page
Okay.
24?
Yep.
Yep.
So page 27.
So this is essentially.
27?
Yeah.
27 has that,
Black
yeah.
and white, but
Right.
it's essentially the same thing. So is there
Okay, no, I'm fine.
No,
Okay.
good question.
The only thing is though, so I will make a motion to approve the license agreement presented by Algonquin to the board with an amendment to number 4, which is restoration, in which you have written that you will not replace any disturbed trees or shrubs. And I would ask that the town administrator in Algonquin either figure out if that's a cash exchange for what's removed or a physical replacement.
There we go, sure.
Are you okay with that, Mike? Does that work?
Yeah,
I just, if something's gonna be taken, I just want it replaced. So with
Okay,
that.
hold on, hold on.
Oh, I'm
Do we have
sorry.
any comments from the public? Yes, Dan. Would you identify yourself for the record and come to the
Mike,
microphone,
oh.
please? Todd has it next to you. Todd has the microphone next to you.
Dan Bailey, interim town council. I'd like to ask for the opportunity, this is the first time I'm seeing this license agreement.
To review it?
And there are a couple of things in there that I would like to bring to the board's attention, so I would ask that if you do approve this, you do it subject to approval by interim town council.
Okay, so I will move that we approve.
Not that we don't trust you, but, you know, we'd like to have our lawyer look at
The
it.
license agreement as presented by Algonquin, subject to review by outside counsel and amending specifically section 4.
Section 4, again, is,
Of the agreement.
Restoration.
And restoration.
Identified by special counsel.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we need to put those conditions in? Subject to approval of order of conditions from the Conservation
do.
Commission?
Yes, you should.
Can you amend
Page
the
23, John.
motion?
I'm not good following this.
23.
You all know that. Okay. Further, subject to approval of an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission, installation of the wire in conduit, identification of the entire length of the conduit with electrical caution tape.
I'll
Is that okay?
second the
Okay.
amended motion.
Second the amended motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Dan, you have some work to do?
Thank you.
Not a lot.
Thank you.
The other component is the owners of the property, the town, that should also sign the NOI application that we're gonna put in.
Okay.
Yes.
Should
Yeah,
authorize.
Authorize the
They need that.
Oh, okay.
That's required under the state wetlands protection.
I have usually signed that in the past.
So
All
why
right,
don't
we'll
we-
authorize Mike to sign that agreement?
Yes.
Motion?
Sure. I make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to sign the NOI, notice of intent application.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When are you hoping to do this?
Do we have a start date?
We were hoping for July, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want me to sign them tonight? Yeah. why don't you
Mike and Todd?
bring them to me?
What's that? I don't want to roll over you.
Give us a couple seconds to clean up. Okay, good evening, gentlemen. Would you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Sure, Todd Corchin, Director of Public Works.
Mike Myers from TEC.
Good evening, gentlemen. So, you're at the 50% design, and Mike kind of gave us an update, but I guess you guys have a little bit of a presentation first?
Yeah, what we did was we brought the exact presentation that was presented on April 4th.
Okay.
Mike did a great job doing so. So, Mike is here. We figured we could, shrink it down a little bit. Every slide is here
Okay.
from the presentation, but at least go through it. And if there's any specific clip that we want to go back to or stay on, then can certainly do that. But let Mike set the pace, and then we'll go from there afterwards.
Okay.
In essence of time, the first 6 are really a recap of the June meeting.
Okay.
Which worked out pretty good because half of the residents that came April 4th actually weren't at the June meeting, so
Okay.
it gave them an update. I can skip those, fly through those. Up to you guys. This is kind of a snapshot. Go through?
No, you can skip it,
Skip it. Okay, I like that.
unless somebody wants to say otherwise.
It was really just a
Okay.
recap
Yeah.
of the 4 alternatives that we looked, 4 sidewalk alternatives that we looked at.
Right.
Alternative 1 was a sidewalk on the north side, the only difference being 10-foot travel lanes versus 11-foot lanes. Alternative 2A and 2B was a sidewalk north side, crossing at Thatcher, and then staying on the south side to U-turn to Buckboard and crossing at Pine Street. So this slide really kind of picks up where we left off with the series of meetings last summer and fall. with the recommendation to keep advancing alternative 1A, sidewalk on the north side. For various reasons, primarily it limits the impacts along the corridor, and that's been the primary concern out there throughout the process. But not just the impacts when you look at pedestrian crossings. If we stay on the north side, pedestrians don't have to cross Gay Street, and they don't have to cross Milk Street.
This was the alternative 1A was what the select board had voted on us moving forward with at that time as well.
Okay.
So since then, we've gone from 30% to 50%. This slide really just recapped for the public what that meant. And it really just means more detail at each of the properties. Our engineers are starting to look at drainage design, because when we introduce granite curbing, we're obviously trapping water on the road and need to convey it through catch basins and drainage pipes. And then thirdly, one of the primary things we heard was, is there an opportunity to go behind the stone wall with the sidewalk? And you may recall that from last fall. So that was one of the things we looked at as we advanced the design. This was really just a summary of that approach. There's essentially 35 properties along the north side of Gay Street within the project limits. However, we've got those challenges, the wetland resource areas, topography, and if houses were located closer to Gay Street. We looked at those three things and found about 11 properties where it was feasible to go behind the wall. Todd and DPW were able to contact all 11 properties, found 3 of them were willing to look at this alternative. So top right kind of just recaps about 1,000 feet, 12% of the project, where we were able to go behind the stone wall. As we were advancing design, we also had a few conversations with Mass DOT to look at, go through due diligence and try to find funding opportunities for the project. Couple meetings to try and get a recommendation from the state as to whether the sidewalk project would qualify for TIP funding. The recommendation we got was that pedestrian and bicycle accommodations would be required to move the project through the TIP.
And Mike, we'd need a waiver too because it's only on one side, right?
We would need a waiver for the design, for the, yes, the sidewalk on one side and for no bicycle accommodations.
We had several discussions with the state regarding this.
Yeah.
I mean, we've developed a relationship with Mass DOT now with the several projects that we've been doing, through the Complete Streets. We have the Adaptive Signal Program going right now, Safe Routes to School program. So we're familiar with a lot of the players within the state, and the conversations that we had with them in the final conclusion essentially indicated to us that we definitely need to include the bicycle accommodations for this to work.
I get the
Or you
donut.
get nothing.
Yeah, okay.
And, it stinks to say the least, because it really limits us at this point to becoming a town-funded project. But, with the vibe and the general feedback that we've received from realistically day one with respect to this project, to start trying to put these bicycle accommodations into a design now, A, we'd have to go backwards with the design, and B, it is definitely going to be more impactful with the overall aesthetic value of that corridor. And it's something that, we've been trying to work diligently with the residents. Mike's been at every one of the meetings, obviously. Mike Myers has been at every one of the meetings. Some of the selectmen members have been to the meetings. And we're trying to accommodate the desires and the concerns that the residents do have, and we appreciate that, we understand that. And I truthfully think that if we start trying to throw in bicycle accommodations in hopes to potentially have the state fund this project, I just think it takes away our credibility of what we said from day one, that we're trying to work with the residents and the direct abutters there. And I don't necessarily feel comfortable in doing that. We're still navigating. It's a very sensitive issue, and I totally understand that. Mike's done a great job with the design thus far, and I just feel as though trying to push this to try to receive funding, it's almost a selfish way to design this from the town standpoint.
Okay.
The design that you have up there, Mike, does it, when you talk about 3 property owners have said it's okay to go on the north side of the wall, does that make sense to have it weave in and out of 3 properties, or are you thinking it would?
2 of
Since
them
there
are
wasn't-
side by side.
Okay,
after
good.
Fox Meadow. There's the two properties just to the west where there is an easement in place already. To there, it makes sense. The other one is across from Milk Street. And I want to say it's about 750 feet. So it's, yeah,
It's
I
not,
mean.
it's not weaving.
It's
just,
not, yeah, it's not, weaving
Yeah,
in front of
yeah.
one property, and then
Yeah.
it's only two areas
Right.
on the corridor.
So you're saying, yes, you
I'd be
probably
okay
do
with
it.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just hadn't heard
Yeah.
the response to it being only 3,
Yeah.
what that meant.
Yeah. So this is really just a recap of where we are with the current sidewalk project. That top section just shows you what the existing pavement is out there today. It's about 26 feet, give or take. With the sidewalk, about 30 feet. The one thing this doesn't show is there are a couple areas where we're able to, in between the curbing and the sidewalk, put a little buffer in there, grass buffer, and try to get the sidewalk off the road. There are a few areas we can do that. Recapping the impacts, and then we did have this slide for the public too, just to make sure we had all the information out there. This is what that MassDOT bike and the pedestrian facility cross-section would look like. The top, again, is just the existing section. And then the middle one is essentially an on-road bicycle facility where you'd have bike lanes, more or less. This section is becoming less and less palatable to the state on roadways, especially if the speed limit's over 25 miles an hour.
The middle one.
The middle one, yeah, they like to see a buffer now in between the lanes and the bike lanes, which we didn't show here because that would put you at about 40 feet. It would look like Blue Hill when we striped that.
And why is the sidewalk 6 feet?
It's 6, it's really 5.5. It's 5-foot sidewalk, and then the curb is 6 inches. So it's labeled as 6 feet just to
So
keep
that,
round
that
numbers.
design, is that handicapped accessible?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
Right, but you could go less than that and still be code compliant and ADA compliant.
Yeah, I could change the 6 to 5.5.
You could go even lower than that, couldn't you?
No.
No, not for a sidewalk.
5 feet sidewalk.
5-foot sidewalk is the standard. It's a 3-foot clearance around such things like utility poles or mailboxes, but then that can become a headache for snow removal.
And what's the
so-
dollar value of the loss from the state funding?
The current estimates that we have right now, looking at just the sidewalk and all the associated items with that, so your granite curb, the drainage, stone walls, retaining walls, is in the area of 3 to 3.5 million.
And how much should we hope to get from the state for that 3.5 million? All of it?
All of it, most of it.
Yeah, that's what,
the
in
tip
order to get
funding
all
would
of
be.
it, we'd be looking at these alternatives, which would be north of that, because you'd be talking a wider section. The one on the bottom is more or less the preferred section, which is an off-road facility where you get bicycles and a shared use path. The most important thing here is the right-of-way is 40 feet from High Street to Milk Street. It's
So-
only 40 feet, so try to visualize a 38-foot roadway in a 40-foot section. Trees and wetlands are actually well inside the right-of-way. The stone walls are at the right-of-way line.
So do we, Mike, can you go back to the first one that shows the entire Gay Street?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right.
The one I
so,
skipped?
Yeah, go back, keep going back.
Like the aerials?
Yes.
Yep.
So have we ever done a layout to show where the town's right-of-way is all the way down?
Yes, we have, so we have the right-of-way on plan. It's 40 feet
Right.
from High Street to Milk Street. At this point, it turns into a county layout, and it does get wider.
Okay.
But if you think about when you drive Gay Street east of Milk Street, it's hard to envision anything wider there. The right-of-way is not really what's holding us back, it's the terrain.
The topography there.
The
is-
topography there is so steep that it's hard
So-
to visualize anything wider than.
But from Milk Street down.
Yep.
now, If DOT had the project, wouldn't they have to take some of that slope out just because of handicapped accessibility? They'd have to come in and probably re-slope
Away
Gay
from the
Street.
road?
Yeah.
Are you talking the
The
slope of Gay Street?
yeah, slope of Gay Street, right? There would
No,
have to
you'd
be
be,
some
that's the
design
one
of it.
area you don't have to, because as long as you're following the existing grade of the road, if it were, it's supposed to be 5% if you were building a new road.
Right.
But if you're matching an existing sidewalk can follow the existing
Okay.
grade of the road, even if we're 10%.
So my question is, and without jumping up, so if we had a 40-foot right-of-way, is that what you said we have?
Yep.
And then when it gets to county, it's what, 60?
It's 50 or 60, yeah.
Okay. So my question is, where Gay Street is right now, it may not be in the center of the right-of-way. So you could actually move Gay Street over and get in a 10-foot path on one side by actually relocating the road closer to the other side of the
You
street.
can shift the road a little, yep.
By shifting the road, that might give us everything so that Mass DOT would pay for it.
Not necessarily, because with the road, the right-of-way is at 40 feet, and the proposed roadway would be at 38 feet.
Right.
At 30 to 35 feet are all the wetlands and the trees that would be taken out. So those impacts with a 30-foot section, if we go 8 feet wider, would be,
So what I'm visualizing is this, is that we move the roadway and we create this, what do you call it, multi-use path, is that right?
Sure. Yep.
That we could then put a wall and not curbing to separate the multi-use from the roadway. Does that make sense?
it does, yeah.
And so that's how I'm envisioning everyone who said they want to go behind the wall for public safety, and the bicycle path and pedestrians would then be behind a wall on one side of the road as opposed to curbing. And the curbing cuts off bicyclists with no place to go as the cars pass. So that's why, I'd asked, where that 40-foot buffer is, or, our right-of-way.
Yep.
And compare it to the road. Does that make sense?
It does. The challenge is that, again, the wetlands and the trees that would get, the trees that, we can go back to, if we go back to this one here.
Yeah.
This is a good example here where if you're looking at, this is a 30-foot section, this is a
Right.
32-foot section.
Yeah.
Just adding 2 feet to the overall section, we have 4 times the impacts to stone walls. So we would be adding, in order to get that DOT section, we'd be going 6 feet wider than this one. This
Right, but we'd
alternative
kind
here.
of be moving the road, so it may not exactly be as impactful. Do you know what I'm saying?
It
If
would
you're
take-
moving it, let's say, if you're looking at Gay Street and you move it 3 feet or 4 feet to the right, now you're not as impactful.
And we're already doing that in some places for the sidewalk. To squeeze in a 5-foot sidewalk, we already have to shift the road a little bit to limit impacts.
Because my thought process is quite simple, is that if we have to take this to the town and say, okay, we're going to pay for it and it's going to cost us $5 million, then we're wasting our time and it's not going to happen. If we design it right and come up with an aesthetics that keep the neighbors happy and build that wall, not to use that line, but to protect them, that aesthetically it would look nice, it would be safe, and it would accomplish everything that we're trying to do, including state funding. So that's why I've at least, thought about how this is. And if you drive through, I don't know, I used to go to Acton all the time. You see all these paths that are way behind a wall. And it's still in the town's right of way. So it's not impacting the property owners. And I realize that some of these houses that are so close on, I'll call it the east side of Gay Street, is that, by moving the road, we can now give ourselves extra room on that, by moving the road.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have looked at that as a possibility. I'm trying to figure out how if we're going to do this, if it ever gets done, how to design it. Because like I said, I don't think there's going to be the temperament to a $5 million project. It might be at 3.5 now, but by the time it's done.
What did we get approved at town meeting? It was to just to
Just
do
a
a
design
for
money.
for the
Design
sidewalk.
Gay
So,
Street
Yeah.
sidewalk.
I mean, we don't even have the authority to do anything more than that, right? At this point?
Well, it's still design, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's worded as
But I think the
such that
bigger
it's
problem is,
sidewalk.
we're in need of a road bond, which is about 5 million. We're now looking at this project, which is 3 million, and we have ongoing necessities throughout the town. It sounds to me like we need a holistic strategy and stop looking at these things individually and make like a master plan. Just a thought.
I think our goal, when you go back in time, when our initial pursuit for the Gay Street sidewalk design was to take a proactive approach, and I've said this so many times in so many of the public meetings, that we never want to be in a position where we're now up against a gun trying to design something, pay for it, because that unfortunate incident just happened. So that was realistically the theme of let's pursue Gay Street sidewalk design. Strategically thinking, you know, we have an opportunity now where we've received, and we were fortunate enough to receive some funding to put towards Canton Street sidewalk design. And we'll be embarking on that soon. And I think from a strategic standpoint, to look at our state opportunities and options, I think, quite frankly, that would be the better of the two. And I could be completely wrong. We might go back 5 years from now and everyone points a finger and say I was wrong, but I believe that is the play to go for TIP funding. I think you have the layout there. I think we have a great project on University Ave. I think you have that connectivity that everybody wants to see filled. And quite frankly, even if we did pursue Gay Street from a TIP standpoint or state-funded standpoint, along with Canton Street, the odds of us receiving funding for both, with what we've experienced lately with complete streets and having to stall on the third round, and now we actually just submitted our application for Coventry in Washington Street today. You know, I don't see, it's like trying to hit a scratch ticket twice. I think our best option would be Canton Street. We continue to design Gay Street as it is, and who knows what's on the horizon for the Hanlon School too, and who knows what
Well, that's
necessity is
what
going to
I'm
be
thinking. That's why
driven. I
to
know.
put this in front of them is taxpayers is not going to happen.
Right.
I think, so the difference is, I think that the off-ramp creates, the installation of the off-ramp creates a different situation for the TIP, and that can be incorporated, the sidewalk can be incorporated into that project. So it wouldn't be a separate TIP. It would just be incorporated into that project. And so I kind of look at this as this would be the project that the state is looking at. And I have some reliable information that says that it is on their radar, that, you know, a safe sidewalk on this street or a bike path, you know, are on their radar.
Right.
It's something they want to do. The off-ramp is going to create a problem on Canton Street, and I think that they are preparing for that as well. They know that.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's a surprise to them. We just have to design it, and then they'll fund it.
Right.
Because they realize that this is created by them
Mhm.
and not us.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, but I think there is room for both.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, you know, by at least giving us, and I don't know if it's going to take a surveyor to figure out where our,
We have everything surveyed.
Yeah,
We have
okay.
the right of way. Yeah, it would just take more design.
yeah.
More design.
So can you at least get that to us? You know, take a look at it and see, you know, how much we could bend the road
Mm.
and see if we can still come up with something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we have to be aware of though too is that the money appropriated at that town meeting to design this is going quick.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure.
if we do this, and if that's the direction that this has to go, then I totally will do it. I think I'm just aware of the emotional attachment that the residents have, and rightfully so, to Gay Street and their levels of concern with the potential levels of impact that they've already expressed through a series of letters, just with
Yeah, we
the
have
alternative
3
we're
or 4 of
going.
them here.
So that's what I just want to be aware of. I know you guys are aware of that, but, I mean,
And that's why I say by bending the road, we might be able to avoid some of those things.
Yeah.
Well, I for one would like to see you complete what you're doing now. I think that's what we gave you direction on back in November. And I think that any consideration for doing something more is a completely separate discussion and separate, I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of it. I just think it is taking the idea of creating a connection between Islington and 109, having safe access for walkers along it. I think it's taking it way beyond the scope of what we've talked about. And I think that's beyond anything I would want us to be doing.
John?
Like I said, I mean, I think these are all great options. I'd like to see them all in one document. And I think the discussion is not, you know, this discussion alone kind of validates my point. We were talking about Gay Street, and all of a sudden we were talking about the slip ramp at University Station. I think if we could look at it all together and come up with a prioritization and understanding and full cost. I mean, what's changed dramatically here is we went from a program that we're doing under the auspices of the Complete Streets program to a program that would be fully town funded. And it's $3.5 million.
Right,
The
which we
difference
don't
is
have.
compliance to get the money, that's the difference. You
Well-
have to
Right,
comply,
right, but
have to comply with the complete
whatever it
streets
is, though, we
program.
went from having a bank account to having no bank account, and we have other priorities. We have,
Right.
a desperately needed road bond bill. So I think this
That's-
discussion needs to continue, but it needs to continue in the context of all the priorities in the town.
But shouldn't we let this study be completed?
Oh yeah, I'm not looking to stop anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to see sidewalks on Gay Street. I think it would be an enhancement to the town. I think
But the
there are-
likelihood now is, you're
Right,
right, it's
I'm
competing
trying to be
against-
realistic, when I think about how much we have in our checking account versus our needs.
Does that help?
If you can help my cough, that would help.
You want a drink of water there?
I've got.
So Mike, what do we do?
So I think, what,
Put it on him.
Mike, could you do a cursory look and see if there's any possibility of just looking at the right of way, and you don't
Yeah, I
have
mean,
that in
we-
front of you right now?
We approach everything, we have been tasked to look at just a sidewalk. We were tasked to look at two
Yeah.
alternatives, we've looked at four, we want to be flexible and work
And,
with
and
you
it's,
guys.
but it's not like these plans will become stale, right? I mean, you've done good work
Right.
that,
Right.
those plans can still be held somewhere and used.
Right.
So I don't think it's wasted money. I just think, I think the timing is a little bit of a challenge, and the funding source is a little bit of a challenge.
I think, yeah, the
And-
question is, do we complete what we're tasked to do, which
Yeah.
is get to a final design of a sidewalk, and then, or
Yes.
reshift?
I say yes.
And, I think that's what
Well,
we're looking for.
I mean, I think the
is that
reshift is
direction.
part of the sidewalk. I mean, if you can reshift so that some of these neighbors' concerns are not impacting their property, that's a big plus.
I mean, reshift our approach. Right now, we're tasked with completing a sidewalk design.
Right.
Does the town want us to go a different direction?
We don't have
to
the authority
evaluate
to.
bicycle
Right.
accommodations? That's,
And I
I think,
think,
what
and
we're
you're saying you don't think it's an option to create a plan that includes a bike lane?
we can create a plan of whatever you'd like,
Whatever you want to pay him to do, he's
There's
up
no
to
money
do.
and no
I've
authorization.
felt the challenges and the resistance from the residents,
Yeah, I
just
think-
Yeah.
proposing a 30-foot section.
You don't think it's realistic?
No,
As
I
opposed
think
to a
that, I think if you
38-foot.
did that, any support that you had in the neighborhood, even the people that want the sidewalk for safety reasons, probably would agree that the aesthetic impact of a right-of-way that was that large
Right.
would be too
Because we're
impactful.
cutting into the
Yeah.
How wide is the road right
There is a
now?
real strong feeling by a
26.
number of residents
So it's 13
about the
feet on both
aesthetics
sides?
of Gay
Roughly,
Street.
yeah.
And we have to respect that.
The rock wall has been a huge item.
Which rock wall?
The existing rock wall that runs down the entire stretch.
Rock
it's-
walls, yeah. They're
Rock-
just
That's been a
series of
huge,
walls.
big-ticket item. The trees have been mentioned on several occasions, and
May.
not that they're any far less significant, but the rock wall has been the one that, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and obviously, we've modeled that approach with several projects we've done that
Right.
obviously go after the state funding, but not to keep repeating, at town meeting, I made it clear that town meeting that when this moved forward, that we would take every approach to try to receive state funding and look into every opportunity. Since that town meeting, things have changed slightly. We've received additional grants and other things, and I just think right now, I don't know. I mean, like you said, John, like this thing isn't going to expire. It's not just,
Right.
we're going to design this
Big
and
plans
it's
for
not
your
gonna-
house, you wait till you have the money.
Right. So I think with respect to the Hanlon School, I wasn't using that as, well, we have that coming up, we have to pay for it. Perhaps that could be a catalyst for this, that might spark residents' inquiries to say, okay, well, if things are shifting, maybe it is a good opportunity to invest some town funding to get my kids to school, or something of that nature.
It may not be
So-
for the entire length, it may be for half the length to
Exactly.
bring people to Hanlon School, and then there's, at some future point, for some future reason, there's some interest in doing the other half. I mean, it doesn't all have to be in one
Right,
shot.
and that was raised by one of the residents, could it go down to,
So when you say you're trying to understand if you should finish, what does that mean? What do you mean finish? You're looking for us to say, finish a plan that includes 5-foot sidewalks.
That's what we've been tasked to do.
And not to meet the standards that are required by the state for the 38-foot layout of the roadway.
When we first, I did go back, and when the project was first brought to town meeting, and we first got on a contract with you guys, things have evolved to building on what Todd said, you know, with the state and really making it more required. You used to be able to file a design exception report. If you had a sidewalk, you could file that for, you know, not having the bike accommodations or a sidewalk on the opposite side because of the impacts. And once you balance that, and felt we had a pretty strong case with Gay Street because it is so narrow.
But they
But
told you otherwise.
They did.
it's evolved, but they're you know, they're evolving.
And maybe it could evolve further back in our favor.
Right.
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 So I think, yeah.
It's a
just-
country road. It's not an urban roadway. This is, their standards right now are not meeting what this road is. It's
That's the
really
community that
not
we are.
practical to think that we are going to create this wide expanse on Gay Street in Westwood. That's just not practical.
I can't tell you how many times this town has said to the state, if that's what it requires to get your money,
Yeah.
we're gonna pass.
The consequences are huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so finish. I just don't see it going anywhere, so.
And that may be the case, but chasing after the state money is not
Well,
right for a lot of
like I said, I
reasons.
mean, I still believe that it can be done in a manner that still, first of all, that road now is 26 feet wide, so it's 13-foot lanes. First of all, we'll be cutting it down to 10, automatic slowing of traffic.
Well, you just have the shoulders too
Yeah,
on the
and we
outside.
could- yeah. So automatic traffic calming measures put in by reducing the width of the road. So I think, you know, I still think and believe that it could be done, you know, with a new brick wall, or with a new stone wall, not even brick.
But the wall would have to be moved for the whole length of the corridor, and that's been one of the primary things we've heard from the public is don't touch the wall,
Well,
limited impacts.
Right, so I'm saying if we move the road, we might be able to put it behind it.
Okay,
Okay.
we've already spun through it a couple times.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Tricia, you're up next.
Feel better, Todd. Hello.
Some reading material.
We
From
don't
the
have enough. We
librarian.
don't have enough.
How appropriate.
That's right.
All right, so Trish, you come in front of us because you're looking for us to approve a request to increase the teens librarian position from a part-time to a full-time, because you've had extreme trouble in getting someone, from what I can tell in the notes.
It's been an interesting excursion.
Okay. So what would you like to tell us to convince us that we should increase the offer from a part-time to a full-time position?
Okay. Well, as you know, I'm very thankful for the support of the board for the team position and the support that the town has also validated the need for a teen librarian. We started this journey back in July of 2018, and we had a 19-hour position, so part-time, non-benefit eligible, and we received 51 applicants and identified 2 very strong candidates, and both of them ended up taking themselves out of contention for the position within minutes of a final interview because they secured a position elsewhere at full-time hours. We went out again unsuccessfully. Candidates that were identified also dropped out late in the interview process for other positions. The board in November, I believe, authorized us to go out for a 24-hour position. And the thought process was that we would get a different pool of applicants because it was benefit eligible and felt more like a full-time job. And we were, I thought, in a really great place in January with a candidate that accepted the position, was on board, and was overwhelmed. And 3 weeks after she took the position, she was no longer employed at the library. She resigned within 3 weeks. what that story told me is that we are expecting a lot from this person. It's a small pool of qualified applicants. It's a pretty, there are, the sheet that I gave you is the teen services competencies, and this is put out by the Young Adult Library Association. It's an arm of the American Library Association. And things that they're looking for are individuals who really connect with the teens, who are passionate about providing teen library services to teens, and in our case, this also includes the tweens. So we're looking at 6th grade through 12th grade. It's an interesting and very specific population, and it's a point in their lives that these kids are going through a lot, and having somebody who understands the psyche. And the first teen competency, the services, is teen growth and development, and I think that's telling, because that, you can't presuppose that a librarian or a library staff person has expertise in that particular field, because that's certainly, as a parent, I learned about that, but I didn't go in knowing about it. So I think that it's an interesting thing that's the first thing that the teen librarians are identified as having an interesting and specific competency in. So 24 hours, great candidate. It didn't work out, and I think it was because the job was big. And we have pretty high expectations in Westwood. You have a very dedicated professional staff at the library. So we went out and did re-advertise again in February, and we had a smaller pool of applicants. We didn't see, in fact, some of them were the same applicants we'd seen in previous go-rounds. And at the end of the day, when I followed up interviews with a final telephone interview, the realization was that the individuals that had applied for the job really were only interested in maybe taking the position until something better came along, and at which case they would no longer be employed. And one of them actually, the best candidate, couldn't work past 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, which, as a teen librarian, that's
that's
counterintuitive.
that's probably not going to work.
Did you tell her about short Wednesdays?
I did, and we told her the hours were made very crystal clear in the interview, and the follow-up, it was just,
Maybe you didn't mean it.
I just,
The interview should be sitting down there on short Wednesdays.
well, we now
So,
do
yeah,
them with the
yeah.
teens, because you can tell a lot from just the reaction and the responses.
My only question was, you have this as effective July 1. Why?
July 1 of this new fiscal year, two reasons.
Okay.
We've gone through almost 200 resumes and resulting in several interviews, and I felt that the staff needed to take a step back just for a little while and not go out again right at this very minute. And it's a lot of the staff are taking vacations prior to the summer reading program starting. That would be on the interview team.
Can you give me an idea of who basically applies, like age?
It ranges.
Yeah.
It was all over the board. We've had everything from recent graduates who have never actually worked in a teen librarian capacity, but they think that they would like teens. Children's services is a broad spectrum, and there are a lot of people who go into library science degrees wanting to work with children. But that's very different from working with teenagers. And a lot of the people that applied had pretty good children's experience, but it doesn't necessarily translate into young adult affinity or any kind of
And you think by making this
interest.
full-time, you're going to get that?
I think that if we make it full-time, we'll see a different pool of applicants. We'll see somebody who either has already been employed in a position who's looking to get into a different system. Our two professional librarians who are most closely aligned with me in terms of the interviewing know of some candidates that would be interested if it was a full-time position, but they weren't. They're already employed full-time, so they are not interested in a smaller number of hours.
Not just retiring to a part-time job.
Yeah, I thought we would find somebody.
Retire to working with teenagers.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
something
That would be great.
I don't know, it just doesn't work for me.
All right.
I,
Doesn't even work at my own house.
Thank God they get older. My question for you, Tricia, is really, as we processed through, there was a job description for 19 hours, and we expanded it thinking part-time with benefits. Forget the people that didn't work out or,
Yep.
left us at the altar, so to speak. How do we justify what is being looked at in this job that we didn't have in the first 19 to 24 hours that we're now doubling the time? That person might have been overwhelmed, so that's why I'm saying leave that person out. What more are we getting for a full-time position in terms of services being provided? Are you, because what we receive from materials really doesn't address that.
Okay, that's fair. One of the components that we would add to this position, if additional hours were added, would be that the individual would take on managing the social media for the library and managing a lot of the PR and publicity. So we're looking for somebody who can do Facebook, who can do the Twitter chats, who can update programming flyers and information, who's comfortable with that kind
Not
of skill
just
set.
in the lane of teen, but for the library
But for the
at
library,
large?
right,
Okay.
because as we expand our programming, which we have done dramatically in the last 4 years, there's also an expansion of work that is sort of related to that. And we ask a lot of basically the teen librarian in cooperation with the adult services staff and the children's staff. So it would be an added component to that job description that's not in it now, and time that would be spent doing that.
Personally, and not that I'm thinking I wouldn't support this, I'd really like to see an updated job description that captures that and breaks down the hours, because it's a big deal for us to add a new position in any of our departments. We were very cautious even thinking about this on a part-time basis when you introduced it. I just want to be sure that we're being thorough in our due diligence so that if we get to yes or when we get to yes, we understand exactly why. It's just, we don't add new positions on often. We've been doing it in public safety for data-driven reasons, and knowing what University Station brought on, et cetera. We have something to back it up. We need that to back this up.
Okay.
And given that it's on the cusp of May, and you're thinking of holding off for a little bit, can we bring it back in our meeting, mid-May?
Yeah.
And just to have that description so we know that we're really grounded in understanding that it's a full-time position.
Okay.
And that we're not just chasing after people who want a full-time job, but it's really not a full-time.
I'm sure for our big audience that is at home watching, I'm sure some people are saying, why can't they just have somebody else in the library do that? Why do they have to make that job full-time?
They're already doing something else.
Right, and so
Yeah,
at least if you give us a job description.
Yeah,
we
it would
can-
just help us have a clarity on our decision.
And I just add a couple of things. One is that this started out as a full-time ask.
You
way
brought it
back
down.
when.
Brought it
and
down
we
to
brought it down
part-time.
to,
I remember.
well, why don't we try for a part-time
I know,
and try?
I do
and so
remember
I
that.
think I think that's one of the things.
Let's get the two to meet,
I
that we
understand.
know we've got the right description with the.
And then the other thing on a new job, I think that the new library has opened up an opportunity for these kids to come over to the library. That there's way more kids coming now than there used to be when
Especially on
the
a
old
short
library.
Wednesday.
Yeah, and so I think that they just have presented themselves as a new client that wasn't there before. So it does lend itself to the creation of a new position. But I think you're justified in saying, okay, well, let's describe it.
Yeah, and I'm sure your thoughts have evolved over this experience, so if you can get them to us, all laid out. And a breakdown of where you think the hours get allocated, that might be a good, you might have it in your head. You probably
But you
do.
want it on paper.
Put it on paper so that when you're actually interviewing people, it's really clear what the breakdown is. So somebody doesn't take the job and say, I want the teen stuff, and I said yes to the other, but I really don't want that. You don't want to have that poor selection or unsuccessful selection happening.
So we'll see you back.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there,
We'll
Trish.
welcome you back. Yeah.
And I do think it's, for the teens, I am thrilled that they feel comfortable coming. I think we are building lifelong
resource.
learners and lifelong library supporters, and I think that that's a really good thing. And it's a risk-free environment for them, and that, they go through a lot in middle school and high school.
And if it can be productive
Yep.
environment at the same time and supportive of
be
their
really great.
academics,
Yep.
whatever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we get to the topic, the reason most of you are here.
Worth waiting for.
We thought it was librarian
Yeah.
staffing.
It was the teen librarian that they're all here for. So next on our agenda, we have a truck exclusion discussion for School Street and Pine Lane. After the Facebook, I understand why it's on the agenda.
So
So, go ahead. So, you want me to just read the entry?
yeah.
So we're going to ask to look at a proposed heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Pine Street and School Street, including requirements that need to be met in order for the town to impose this exclusion. So there are requirements that Mass DOT requires in order to have this truck exclusion. One is that we must come up with an alternative route which stays within the boundaries of Westwood. And it has to be a study done, a traffic study done on the volume of commercial vehicles and the condition of the pavement. And in certain instances where land is primarily for residential use, they have requested an exclusion during hours of darkness. So does that mean that you can only use it during the day?
You don't want to hear the truck at
It's
night.
exactly what it means, that you can only use it for trucks during the day. The exclusion applies to nighttime because it's assumed to be more or proven to be more dangerous
Right,
at
and-
night.
And people are sleeping and don't want to hear the trucks going by, et cetera. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't
Okay,
think
so
that's,
go ahead.
I don't think that's the one that we're.
No, I don't think we
that
want
we're
that one.
working
That's
on.
not gonna help
That's
us.
not the one we're talking about. So, I initiated this. I went to the police department and asked them to give me a summary of what it would take and whether or not this made sense. And so they indicated what would be required, and the next step would be to conduct a study to ensure that determine whether or not we meet one of these warrants, because these are the warrants that are required to do a truck exclusion. The police department also identified a route that would be alternative to this, and that would be to go up Washington Street and then take Gay Street,
Take a left on Gay,
take a left onto Gay.
or go all the way down to Washington.
Or at
go down
Pine
Gay
Lane,
and take a
go
right
down
on
to
Washington.
Washington and take a right, right.
Is that corner at the corner of Gay and Washington wide enough for a truck to turn?
Well, that would be something that would be studied as to determine whether or not these things would
Could
meet
it
the
be any
requirements.
worse than
If it
what's
can make it
already
at Pine
happening?
Lane, yeah, if it can make it at Pine Lane, I guess it can make it anywhere. Yeah, exactly.
It's the oncoming.
We agree.
Right
I
in front of
agree.
Trish's house.
It's,
Yes.
And I think that,
yeah, how about?
the other thing that we identified is that there is some feeling that there was already a truck exclusion on this roadway. There is not. There was a requirement made of the development, the Islington redevelopment, of trucks not being able to come out of the parking lot for CVS and take a right and go that way, that they could only turn left and go back to Washington Street. But that doesn't preclude them from going back and coming back up. So any truck that is on this roadway is appropriately on this roadway at the moment, because there is no exclusion, so one would have to be,
Right, there's no exclusion on Clapboard Tree, Pine Lane, or Gay.
There's no truck exclusion on any of those.
So we'll create one hypothetically on Pine, and our
The
answer.
request is for us to do
Pine
it on
School.
Pine.
So the answer to the residents on Gay and Clapboard Tree will be,
How can you put all those trucks on my road?
Well,
But it's more of a main road.
Those streets would necessarily have to take trucks.
Well, they already do. They're taking the,
Yeah.
they're already taking the dump trucks from, the cement trucks.
Well, Gay, yeah,
Yeah,
primarily
from
Gay.
Tresca.
Tresca, yeah.
Taking those every day. So I suppose the simple question is, how long would this take for us to come up with it? Because I thought in the meantime, why can't we put up those signs that say no trucks with the little bullseye through them and just put them up? Even if people just ignore them, at least, we could say they were up. Put them on both ends.
Can't do it.
You can't do it. The state will never allow that, and it would be a violation of the requirements of the state. So
So-
MassDOT truck exclusions are the exclusive authority of MassDOT, and
Okay.
we would not sit well with MassDOT if we'd started playing around with that.
I understand they won't be able to enforce it.
just to
That I
discourage-
understand.
So, Mike, to me, there's no way, the trucks should not be going through that neighborhood. The winding streets.
Oh, you
So
should see
one
it when it
question-
does happen. Sorry.
The
Go ahead.
turn radius, there's no.
Just
Yeah.
Please,
hold on a second.
we'll give public a chance. So, yeah, one of my thoughts is that the police and DPW could come up with some signage, one to show, when you're driving on roads where it shows there's a sharp turn or a street coming into it, some kind of street sign that does depict the nature of the roadway being somewhat winding. I think we should try to figure out what we can do now. But we should double down on that right turn restriction out of CVS and say that trucks should not be going up that street as a connection over to Gay Street, wherever they go from there, whether they're heading to Dedham or up to 109. It is not meant to be for large commercial vehicles. It's
Right.
ridiculous. It should not happen.
Mhm.
The state may make this challenging for us to get there. And we may not get there, but I think we
try.
should push this
Yeah,
as
I
hard
think
as we
so.
can.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I don't think it's really,
I-
John? I would say that's not really an issue.
Yeah,
so
I have a fine,
we're
I'm
okay with
fine
that.
doing a study. I'm not sure to what end.
Well, the end is to determine whether or not we meet a warrant that we can then officially put on a truck exclusion and enforce it and
And there's
fine
a
people.
process which will allow residents of Gay Street or wherever it's meant to be redirected, we have to go through a process.
Right.
We can't do it on our own.
Right.
We can't do it without going through necessary steps, and we need to have a public hearing at some point.
Right,
in
and
the
I
process.
don't expect anybody from Gay Street or Clapboard Tree is gonna show up and say, we gladly welcome the trucks. So
That's why you need to have a public hearing, to have the opinions of everybody, yeah.
But at least for now, the first part is to get the study done?
Get the
Well, we should
study
be doing
done.
a study
Okay.
anyway, but I mean, I guess the timing is what I'd question. I mean, we have done traffic studies on Pine Lane within the past few years.
I don't think so. but-
Not
When's the
that
last
I'm
one?
aware of, and
Oh.
it's not specifically about trucks, so I think that
Right.
this would entail doing a traffic count with a thing that would count the traffic and then determine how many trucks.
We should
you're
do some
using.
sort of traffic study. I mean, maybe it's now before CVS opens and then once CVS opens as well. I just would be curious if the volume increases.
Well, it's always good to get one that's in
Pre and
place.
post.
Well, yeah, the pre is the
Right.
establishes.
So
the
if we're going to
base.
do it, we should do it sooner rather than later and then
So-
do a secondary one.
So Mike, where do we come up with the funding for the study?
Well, we can, either the selectman has an account that we
Right.
can talk about. So I'll ask Todd to
Get us a
get
number
us an engineer.
for
to
next
give us a
meeting?
number and then figure out what this would cost. If we have the authority, we'll just make it happen.
Okay. Okay, so you have a unanimous board. Does anyone have any comments you'd like to make? Someone once told me when you're winning, but anyway, go ahead. Yes, come on up.
Good point. You can just,
As a judge once told me, when you're winning,
yeah, sit down.
Good evening,
Hi.
Kate Wynn, 10 Cedar Hill Drive. I am definitely in support of everything you've said about this. I do just want to highlight that it sounds to me like there's an inconsistent view of what Gay Street is in this situation. Earlier in the evening, it was described as a country road, not maybe needing a sidewalk. And now we're saying that it would be absorbing, a lot of what's there probably already, but we're saying, oh yeah, it definitely should be taking these trucks.
And we're not all saying the same thing, just so you know, and it's a
Right.
process of.
So I just
review.
want to highlight, it is an important street. It serves many functions for the town. One of the functions it does not serve is getting pedestrians from the Hamlin School to this building, to any of the buildings here. So also people I've heard from on Sandy Valley Road cannot make that walk safely with their children. So I'm all about safety, people on Pine, everybody. It would be great to keep the same view of our streets across many different conversations. So, thank you.
good point, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, so Mike, find out what it costs for the study if we have.
Yep.
And push that forward if you would. I don't think we need any motions or anything, correct?
No.
No, okay. Thank you, welcome to
Thank
stay
you
for the
for
rest of the
coming out.
meeting if you'd like.
Thank you.
Come on, we're getting into the really good stuff now.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
Yep.
thank you.
Thanks for coming.
So next we have the Westwood Media Center contract extension. So we're just extending the contract
Yes.
from April 25th to June 30th, so it'll allow
Yes.
them to negotiate?
Exactly.
Okay, any questions?
Hold
Nance?
on. I cannot get to the page, so please hold on.
Page
No, no,
71.
It's
Okay.
not that. It's
Yeah,
when
I know,
I'm
it didn't
supposed to
do it.
click it,
It
it's
didn't
not
do it.
going there, so I want to make sure.
I know, I had to scroll too.
So I want to make sure it's the exact same terms. We're just
Yes.
extending the
Yeah,
contract
we're
to June
just
30th.
extending the
Nothing was
contract as it
amended.
exists. Nothing has been amended or changed. There have been some suggested changes by them. We've taken them into consideration. Our lawyer has responded to those, so we got some back and forth going on with them. But nothing changes of what
This.
you're extending. That agreement's in place.
The original agreement is just
Yeah.
being extended, no changes.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Then
So I
I'm
move the
Done?
board grant an extension of the existing contract to the town of Westwood, or Westwood Media Center, until June 30th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, gotta scroll because it's not
It's not working.
working. It's all right. It's better than reading the PDF. Okay. Next, we have appointments for election officer and the Norfolk County Advisory Board. So this is to have the select board appoint Barbara Laws as an election officer and myself to the Norfolk County Advisory Board. Anybody else want to do it?
No, my question is Jerry McDermott still in that capacity, and has he resigned, or we never reappointed him?
He resigned.
Fine.
We didn't get the resignation. He's the sheriff now. I know what he is, we didn't receive a resignation.
We didn't, did Dottie? Huh?
She might have, because she's the one that pointed it out.
Yeah.
That he had resigned. I'll ask her.
We'll give him a call.
Okay.
So are we doing the appointment, or?
Well, we're going to assume, I would suggest
Why don't we
that
make
you
it subject
assume-
to receipt of the
Okay.
Yeah,
resignation?
okay.
So I move that we appoint Barbara Laws to serve as an election officer for a term to expire June 30th, 2019. And I further move for Michael Walsh to serve as the town of Westwood's representative on the Norfolk County Advisory Board for a term to expire June 30th, 2020, contingent upon the receipt of Jerry McDermott's resignation letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have to abstain? No.
You can appoint yourself.
Okay.
You can-
Aye.
And it-
Town
and-
council says you may.
Okay. Dan says
Yeah,
yes.
I'll just make the point that, that, you know, it traditionally was by the Board of Selectmen. It was several years ago, there was a particular individual who was interested in serving, and the board decided to put that person, and then it never came back to the board, so.
And then he became sheriff, so it's not such a
No,
bad-
it was somebody before that, actually, years ago.
Okay. Next on our agenda item, Dan. You're up, my friend.
Is this deja vu all over again?
It is.
Yeah, but we're done.
No, we're not.
Semi-done. Christine, at the end, it doesn't go to any of them. That's okay, just, bookmarks,
Same
the
thing on mine.
bookmarks are
That's
not
why
working.
mine's
so-
I was speaking to Topgolf.
Okay, no, we're not.
But that's the-
no,
that's next.
That's the next one.
So I'm here with respect to the tax increment financing agreement between the town and Citizens Bank. I'll remind the board that you approved a memorandum of agreement with Citizens back maybe 6 weeks ago that set out certain terms and included a letter of intent. Under that memorandum, the board agreed to use diligent efforts to put together a tax increment financing agreement by April 30th, which is tomorrow, of course, and to bring a warrant article to town meeting in support of that TIF agreement. The MOA also said that the TIF agreement would be executed by the parties prior to town meeting, but held in escrow by me until, and unless there's a town meeting vote in favor of it. Obviously, if there's not a town meeting vote in favor of it, it's null and void. So we have reached agreement regarding the terms of the agreement. I can tell you it's mostly legal boilerplate that follows the statute. We arm wrestled a bit about it because the statute's new and we don't have a lot of experience with it. But citizens, attorneys, New England Development's attorneys, and mostly Gareth has taken the laboring oar on this. My partner, Gareth Orsmond. and they have reached agreement regarding the terms of the agreement. Both Mike and Nora have reviewed this, and they have approved it. They gave some really good input on it as we were going through it. Again, it's consistent with the terms of the MOA, which I'll remind you is a 15-year TIF, 95% in year 1, 75% in years 2 and 3, then 25% for years 4 through 13, 0% reduction in years 14 and 15. It applies only to the property where Citizens will be located, which is a little over 8-acre parcel up on the top of the hill. I am here. I'm comfortable with it, very comfortable with it, and I certainly recommend that a majority of the board sign it. The one thing that's missing from the package, the execution package that I have, are the final project development review plans, which were approved by the planning board on Tuesday night. That's the other thing to add. The planning board has reviewed and issued all of the necessary permits and approvals for this, and I know Citizens is hoping to break ground not too long after town meeting.
And the vote by the planning board was unanimous.
Yes, it was.
Off topic a little bit, but maybe Dan or you, Nora, could just describe what is taking place on the site right now that relates to site preparation. It's the developer doing some work, but they're at risk for that? I mean,
The developer's doing site preparation work, so whether it's for this project or some
Everybody.
future project, they're regrading the site.
and that's all that's taking place right now?
That's it, yes. But Citizens is prepared to apply for a building permit in the coming days for a foundation that would be subject to them getting the TIF agreement. So I don't believe they'll begin work before
could.
town meeting, but they could if
Yeah.
they want. They have the approval from,
I think that would be ill-advised.
yeah. They're interested in getting their building permit application through the process as quickly as possible.
Clearly.
They're not interested in making the move to Westwood if they don't get the TIF. So I think they want to have all their ducks in a row. That's why they went to the planning board and obtained the approval they needed from the planning board.
Yeah.
But the work that's going on is NED, preparing the site for whatever future it has.
What is a building, how long does a building permit typically take for a project this size?
30 days. It can be faster in some cases, but
But you're not going
do
to
our best,
specifically
but-
do anything to go faster. You'll review it like any other.
review it like any
other
other, so,
application.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, as quickly as it can be reviewed.
Okay.
And one option we have is to authorize the town administrator to execute, but you're here with, it's not, okay.
No,
That was
you need to
before
sign
us.
this one. The next one is the town
Top
administrator.
golf, right.
No, that's under this one that we have it
Yeah, it has it
indicated.
listed, but, okay.
Anyway, I move that we approve and sign the tax increment financing agreement with Citizens, what's the official entity?
Citizens Bank, comma, NA, National Association.
Citizens Bank, N.A. Approve and sign, that was my motion.
Okay. I'll second, out of necessity. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed? Okay,
When you sign, please sign this one.
okay.
Because we were
Thank
tweaking
you.
it until 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay. And while we're signing this, should I continue, Nancy, with Top Golf?
Just to remind everyone, the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen filed an appeal of Top Golf's special permit. They're going to be at 777 Dedham Street in Canton. There was concern regarding the traffic. They've got 463 parking spots at, within a quarter of a mile of an intersection that's been the subject of a lot of work, both with respect to University Station and right now as the I-95 improvements are going in. We had Nora, Mike, and I had a meeting not long after the appeal was filed with the proponent. We did reach an agreement. The agreement is basically two things. It's $250,000 to the town, unencumbered, but that will be used to fund a design study for Canton Street sidewalk There's some other money that's available that comes out of the project as well, the University Station project. So between the two of those, I think Mike's pretty comfortable that we've got the money to look at the design. The other thing that they committed to was doing certain wayfinding, Topgolf, when they open. So that will discourage people from north and east of Canton Street from using Canton Street. You know, the goal is to get them to come down 95 and get off at University Avenue, and then go down University Avenue and take a left on Canton Street. We had to do a little bit of pushing because the signatory to the settlement agreement the first time around was a single-purpose LLC that had nothing other than the permits. So I said I'd really like to have someone with some assets. Now we have both, you know, we have the single-purpose entity, which is a New England development entity, so we know where they live. But we've also got Topgolf itself signing on, which is what I really wanted. So they are signed on both for the money and for the wayfinding. So with that change, and with the fact that we're supposed to let the land court know by Wednesday that we have a settlement agreement in place, that is our deadline, I would recommend that the board, actually, previously you have, you authorized Mike to sign it. So I think in the way the document is set up, is it's set up for Mike's signature. So what I'd ask you to do is just authorize him to sign it again, given these small changes.
So Dan, the only thing is, it says the deadline's extended till tomorrow.
I was wrong.
Okay, you were.
That's
okay.
what I get for not talking to my litigation partner.
It's May 1.
It's May 1, yeah.
Wednesday, okay. All right, any questions?
No.
John?
No.
Okay.
You don't need a motion, though.
Yeah,
We
you
do.
need a motion.
Authorize the town administrator,
Okay, I think I missed that.
page 98.
I move
Sign
that
and
we
execute.
authorize the town administrator to sign the final settlement with New England Development and Topgolf.
No.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
thank you. Moving along on our agenda, we have review annual town meeting warrant articles. Anything we need to do?
No,
No.
No.
Okay.
just unless you have any questions or follow-ups, or, we're putting the packets together this week, so.
Shall we reschedule town meeting for another date?
Sure.
But,
Just kidding.
it's too late, we already published it. Remember last
it is,
year?
you already
That's
signed
right,
it.
we already signed it.
Already signed the
So,
warrant.
okay.
Glad we don't have to do that.
Um,
I do have one question,
Okay.
Mr. Gillette, on Article 15, the community electricity aggregation.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to Tom Philbin and Steve Hart about their needing to be
Available?
Yeah. Not recently.
present and accounted for? And
I know they're going to be, but I will
and it'd be nice if
confirm
they
with
were
them.
sitting towards the front in the event that we think that they should get up and respond. They should wait for direction
Yeah.
from.
I also encourage them to put together a one-page flyer that would be available. That
I
they
would
could
love to
talk
see it
from.
before it's finalized.
Okay, I'll see if I can.
Right.
We'll arrange to
John
have
may
them
want to
come in
see it as
tomorrow.
well.
Before it
I
goes
just
to
think we
print?
should- Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, so now we have our future future select board meeting schedule.
I was
So-
I was fine with all the dates.
Did you have a chance to check them against your schedule, Nance?
Yes, I'm okay with them as well.
I think I'm fine with all of them as well.
Wow.
Yep, that doesn't happen too often.
That's awesome.
So, June 3rd, June 24th,
July 15th,
July 15th, August 5th, August 26th,
correct.
with intentions to try and make a determination for town meeting
Yeah.
at that August meeting.
We won't be, it certainly wouldn't be final.
No,
Our
you don't have to,
obligation
yeah.
isn't, well,
But just,
the
you'll have a
obligation is
better-
if we aren't going to have one, to decide by a date.
Right.
I know Christina gave us September and October, but we're not going to get into those, but you didn't
That's
put,
okay.
you didn't put down Westwood Day on that calendar.
I did not. June, what is that, September 28th?
21st.
27, no, is it the 21st?
It's earlier.
I believe it's the 21st this year.
I think my-
20 and 21.
Yeah, that sounds.
And I don't know when the holidays are, the Jewish holidays, so.
Well, that's, when you have your meeting in August, we'll make sure that you
Okay.
have
Everything
the
up to
August
date.
5th. You'll
Yeah.
go, you should go through and finish out the year.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna guess that probably our next one would have, after that would have been September 9th anyway, but that's.
You can do,
check
if
with-
you
no,
want
check with-
to,
You have
or
to
you
check
can
on the
wait.
holidays, because I don't wanna schedule a meeting if it's on
Yeah,
the
if
Yom
we get
Kippur
to
or Rosh
June, we
Hashanah.
can start
Right, you can figure it out.
determining September and October.
Okay.
You know?
Any other
we get
questions
to-
from the public? Kate, do you have anything else before we adjourn into executive session? Okay,
You have
thank you.
minutes, unless you want to put them off. You're more than welcome to, but.
I read them, I don't have any questions,
Do you want to take them, read them?
and do it at our next meeting?
You can do it at the May 13th, and then it's up to you. I don't wanna force
John, did you review them?
I did, I'm fine.
Well, then, give me a moment.
Okay. If we can do it
Just
now, we
make
can
sure.
get them out, so take your time.
It looks bigger because it's a bunch of meetings.
I'm not used to it not being in the packet, so I'm unfortunately didn't take the time to review it before. It came via an email again?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Gotta get on top of that. Okay, so far, March 4th looks good.
Okay. Yep. Shh, it's still on, you know. Almost.
Okay, why don't we just do the 4th and the 25th?
Okay.
That's fine.
Do those, John?
What's that?
Approval of minutes, March 4th and March 25th?
I move we approve
Yep.
minutes from March 4th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
I move we approve the minutes from March 25th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. You want to hold off on the refs?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That concludes our meeting this evening. As the Board of Selectmen, we go into executive session to discuss two issues pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection A, Subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the DPW Union and the SEIU Clerical Union, and General Laws, Chapter 30A, Subsection A, Subsection 7, to comply with any general law for review of executive session minutes, and the open meeting law of 30A, Sections 22F and G, both of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body if discussion were held in open session. The board will not be returning to open meeting this evening. Our next meeting will be on Monday, May 6th at 6:30 in the faculty room of the high school prior to town meeting. We have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh? Aye. Thank you. Please remember to get out and vote tomorrow.